And a very warm welcome to the channel. Wood, but not just wood. Birch laths, new ones, because we're doing lime plastering. The weather's turned, scaffolding on the old trawl boat hasn't been altered as yet, so we reverted back to plastering. However, old school plastering, lime plastering. We've got some lath work to do, and float and set. We've also got a little bit of the old gypsum to do. For example, the ceiling above me there is pre-boarded, so we'll be doing that with a gypsum finish. And that wall there is internal, and to save a bother to, we want me to dot that and skim that one, because the reason we're doing this one is because the cavity on this building is probably about, inch and a half. And there has been damp issues over time. We've cleared the cavities at the bottoms, all been, opened up and cleaned out and so on. But she just wants it in lime, so why not? Okay, so just looking at this this cornice, we've got some of it that's been kept. I've got 3 sections. Here's one of them. I've got enough pieces to make up the full thing. We're going to try and rerun this, remake it. And you can see there, sort of like a cross section of it. So there's quite a bit to build up to form all this sort of area. So we'd start off with frame out. We get our laths on. And very important when you're using laths is to make sure that they're absolutely saturated. So it's no good nailing them up and giving them a quick spray with water. They need to be really wet. Right, well, we've got our sections here, and the edges are a little tatty. Because it's a lime mortar, we're just going to plane a bit off with the old trowel, just to flatten it. And the reason I'm doing that is because these pieces, I need to try and roughly get them together so that I can reassemble this piece, so that I can use it as a template for making up my horse for running the new piece. Right then, boys and girls, I've just spent the last couple of hours mocking that up. And then all I do, I put my stuff on obviously, and then I just pull this along, and I keep repeating that process until eventually we've got the shape there. And once we've got the shape, and it's to the thickness that we require, we then use the putty. So we put the putty on, we go over it, we wet it up, a bit more putty where it needs it, keep pulling. So eventually we've got the cornice run nice and smooth, nice and even, and obviously the correct shape. And because we're following patterns, which will have fixed to the wall and ceiling, which of course will be, I'm not going to say level, but in line with the existing cornice, because that might not be level. So we'll follow the existing cornice where that sits. So when we run through, it gets to either end, it's in the correct position. Right, so next job. Up there. Hole in ceiling. Missing cornice. So first job is get some timbers up there. I've got some previous ones. Just put some noggins in so I can fasten the laths. Let's crack on. next, we don't want screws. What we do want is these, which are ring nails for laths. There we go. Right, so we're going to, like I said, start off at this end here. We go just past there. We're going to tack in this end, and I'm going to measure it from the wall across. It's just tacked in. Because I want to try and get them parallel with the wall, so when I obviously do get to the wall, you know, it's not twisted miles away. Yeah, it's not really miles away. I have a piece of lath there, which I'll use as my spacer. The nail sticking in me. The old joist there. Explain why I can't get the laths. Yeah. Good God. Well then. Got it. Got it. Right. That's better. So I'll put it like that. Too heavy. Too heavy for doing this. It's just like plasterboard, you know, with wood. These old floor joists are a bit of hard timber. So never mind. Twisting that. I'd have been better off with a bit of the tower settled really, but bit of a last minute today, this with the weather. Right, so we're putting the noggins in there now. So we don't want any bounce in it, or very little. Bear in mind it's not plasterboard, it is laths. And these aren't just pieces of wood, you know, it's not a bit of 3x2 ripped down. I mean, this is the stuff. You know, it's I think the birch, if I remember rightly, you can get them in oak as well. And you can get the ones which are ribbon laths, which are split rather than sawn. These are sawn. No point in doing the split laths on here, because everything that's in this building that is lath is sawn. Because the Victorians were obviously mechanising everything with the Industrial Revolution, and they were sawing the laths rather than paying some chap to spend all day splitting them. Right, there you have it. That's the laths nailed up. I'll give you a closer look in a sec. Now the thing is, when you're doing laths, you don't have to put lath to lath. You can, you don't have to. What you can do is lath on top of lath. So if you've got a lath going, say that way, you put that one to it, and then you can nail through it, and it holds the two together. It just saves you having to cut them. I mean, you can chop them with your lath axe and so on, but the problem with my lath axe is it's been used for chopping bricks and all sorts of things. It needs grinding up. So I don't mind just lapping them over. Because we're not going any further than that. That is purely for the cornice. We don't need to be doing the whole ceiling. Right, I'll give you a closer look. Right, there you go. Now you see how I've tucked it in behind the bit of cornice that's still remaining. Done that on both sides. So the next stage on that would be to get our battens on the wall and the ceiling, get them set to exactly where they need to be for running with the horse. We need to really wet up them laths as well. They have been outside, they are damp, but they're not saturated. You're best having them quite wet, because what will happen is if they're not wet, the wood's going to suck the moisture out of the lime, and the lime's going to shrink and crack. So yeah, you're better off getting them wet. And then you just start building up your layers, which I shall show you in a while. So of course, when you're undertaking lime plastering, and some of you will be fully aware of this, but when you're undertaking lime plastering, it's not like your modern day lightweights, your gypsums, etc. You need to work it differently, treat it differently, and you also need to add animal hair. Now this is horse, and what you do, you've got your mixer going, you put these bits of horsehair in, but you don't put big clumps in, because big clumps will just stick together and be a big clump, and that's a weak spot in your plaster. So you've got to pull odd strands out and keep feeding them into that mixer as that mixer's either rotating or doing its bit, But very important that you get enough of this animal hair in there. Now you could use horse, you could use goat. Like I say, this particular wad is horse, but I've got a mixed box. I've got tons of it. I misunderstood when I ordered it about 2 years ago, and got enough to do about 4 Victorian townhouses. But that's okay, because it just goes in stock. It's not going to disappear or anything. Right, horsehair. Right, so I'm just going to offer up the old running mould, horse, whatever you prefer to call it, just to see that I've got enough black running out. Button the wall there. I'm on the ceiling here. Tuesday morning. And this. And as you can see up there, I've now got my buttons on. We've got the old running on up there, ready. So the next job that we've got is knocking up a hot water mix. Start running this squeeze. Right, so we start off with our kibble. Lumps of burnt limestone. And we're going to measure the amount of limestone and the amount of aggregate, sand in this case, we put in. Very important that it's measured. You've got to get even measurements. And we're also going to measure the water because we want 2.5 times the volume of water that we've used of kibble. Does that make sense? Let's crack on. Okay, so I've got my good old faithful tin bucket. Now, I don't want to fill this completely full of kibble. It'd be too much for what we're doing. However, I need to gauge it. So what I've done, got my marker pen, drawn a line inside the bucket. Can we see it there? It's down there. So that line now represents how much material I need to put in this bucket. So I'll fill it up to that line. So I'll put one of these of kibble to 3 of sand. More than that, obviously. So it'll be 2 kibble and it'll be 6 sand, so on and so on. Right, let's start measuring the sand out. We'll put the sand in first. So the sand I'm going to be using is this. It's just a bog standard plastering sand from the builders merchants. Now the reason I'm using this is it's as close as we're going to get to the original, because the original was beach sand, and I don't really want to be using beach sand in it. But this is a fine plastering sand, and it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Okay, so we've measured our first lump of sand into the bucket. And we just tip it there into the big metal dustbin. Right, so we don't just chuck the kibble on top. What we do now, pull that out over it there. We want to dig a hole into it. Right down to the bottom. Bring it up the side of that bin, packing it up there, like so. Nice big hole. The lime's got room to expand in there as it slakes. Right, so we've got our kibble measured out now, and you'll know I've put a lump of 3 by twice in the middle of it. Now the idea of that is it's going to leave a gap at the bottom. Which will allow the water to penetrate the very bottom when I pull it out. I've got the measured amount of water, and we're now going to tip it in. As you can see there now, a very violent reaction. What we're going to do now, we're going to put the lid on it and let it cook. Right, we've got about 25 minutes now with it cooking. It's now stopped bubbling and making noise. So let's have a look and see how it's done. Well, looks like it's cooked, which is good. Very, very hot indeed, which is what we want. Right, so the next job is to run the old paddle mixer through it, which is going to turn the putty and the sand into a mortar. But safety first. Right, there you go. So that's the mortar now made. So the next stage is going to be to put the animal hair in. Now I'm not going to do that with the paddle mixer. You think it'd be easier. However, past experience tells me that if I put animal hair in and then put the paddle mixer in it, all the animal hair ends up right around the paddle mixer. So I'm going to fold it in by hand. Might take me 20 minutes, but at least I know it's in there and it's not on the end of the paddle mixer. Yummy. Now that's very hot, and it's what we call a hot mortar. Okay. So we're now going to tease in the old animal hair. Now, we don't want big clumps. You don't want to get a lump like that and chuck it in there. Just tease it off that wad of hair. Just nice and gently. And it just has this great smell about it. Right, so I'm just going to very carefully pummel it. This bit of 3B twice. Just to make sure that that hair's not through it. Right, don't know if you can see on the camera there the bits of hair in it, but that's right the way through that mix now. Next job, I've got to saturate the glass and the wall, and I mean saturate. Because if you don't, what's going to happen is the brickwork that we're going on to is going to suck the water out, and so will the glass. If it sucks the water out of the mortar, what's going to happen is it's going to shrink and it's going to crack. Right, so we've got the gear now on the old spot board there. Now remember, this stuff is lethal, so if you are having a go with it, watch some eyes. Try not to breathe in the dust. There we go, that's the first coat on. A bit messy, the first coat. Some of you chaps might look a bit harsh, this kind of scratching, but what you need to do with line. The scratch coat, that is. You don't want to be using a cone, plasterer's cone, then you can do it. You want a decent line in it. Rougher the better, really. And then that next coat can really get hold of it. Might be a bit less for you again. Yes, leave that for a while. It's flat, but you don't want it smooth. It needs to be, you know, I mean, the way that I do it is I'll put my little trowel onto it and I'll go like that with it. Using the edge of the trowel as like a small feather edge ruler or something. And if you think your trowel is square there, so if you very carefully go up to your ceiling, so you've got it on the wall, the ceiling, and you go across it nice and slowly, you'll square that corner up too. Of course, when you're applying your scratch coat, you want it as thin as you can get it. So don't forget, you put the float coat on top of this, and then you put the finish on. So this has to be really thin. You wanted it to really bite into that brickwork, so you're pushing it on hard and you're giving it thin. And there we go. End of the day. Bear in mind, that's just a scratch coat, that. Up there. And the other side of the chimney breast up there. Not doing the chimney breast yet, for obvious reasons. But we're getting there. We are getting there. Samba's full of crap though. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. Look at that. That's out of one handboard full. That's stones. And it's supposed to be a washed plastering sand from one of our well-known builders merchants. It's been around for many years. And I'm not talking about a DIY store. I'm talking about a mainstream builders merchants that's really cocked up. I'm going to go and complain tomorrow. Wednesday morning. And we're still on the line plastering, which is good because it's horrible out there. It's cold and damp. It's like winter. Anyway, what we're doing today is we're sorting out the bottom end of the bay. Now, on these Victorian townhouses, what they had a habit of doing was the stone windowsills would run right through to the inside and they'd sit it on both skins, so to speak. And this, in turn, on a lot of these old properties, is creating damp issues. Now, you can go down the road of tanking and chemicals and buggering about with all that stuff, or you could do it the way that I'm doing it, and that is to lath it out, leaving an air gap behind it, so any damp that does come through the stone can circulate and escape. It's not going to build up and up and up. Now, by doing this, it's not going to rot the stone, and it's not going to cause damp issues inside. It's the better way of doing it. Tanking things, all you're doing, you're putting a plaster on it, and an elastoplast, that's all you're doing. You're not actually curing the damp problem. Let's have a look. Right, so you can see there that you've got your brickwork coming up, and then the stone, which is actually the stone windowsill outside. And that's going to suck the water through. Oh, there's a possibility. I mean, it's bone dry and it's been raining all night. But, so there's a possibility that water will come through at some point. So this is what I've come up with to rectify the problem. Putting laths on it. Now I'm fixing my timbers to the stone, but I'm putting some thick black plastic behind the timber, which again will protect the timber from any possible moisture that comes through. But because there's a gap and I've not put the polythene right across the stone. I've only done it behind the timbers. And the idea of that is that any moisture that gets in there can get out and circulate and basically come through the lime and evaporate, and it's gone. And we don't have a problem with damp then. Right, let's crack on with it. Okay, you can see now I've got my timbers on with a bit of polythene behind them, but no polythene in between them. Because if there is going to be moisture, we want it to come out. We don't want it to stay in there. Polythene can make it condensate, and that's going to rot the stone, which we don't want. You know, let's face it, let's do it right. So next, we're going to start putting the laths on. Let's keep repeating the process until we get to the top. As simple as that. We've got all this lovely air gap behind it to let any moisture circulate and escape. Okay, there you go. All the laths are on. Right, so I think we're going to conclude this week's video. It's going to be a part 1 and part 2 for lime plastering. Because as you can appreciate, there is a lot of work involved, and for me to video the whole process from start to finish, you'd probably be sat at home watching the telly for a week, because it takes forever. I've had to take a load more cornice down. It was couldn't save it. It's gone. What somebody's done initially, they've taken all the lath and plaster down, and they've cut through it, cut through all the lats and everything, and then they've plasterboarded it. But they've disturbed and damaged the cornice. And to rectify that, what they've done is they fixer-foamed it to the ceiling. Well, that's obviously not worked, and great big chunks of it were literally, so I had to take it down. They just made a right mess of it. So what I've done, I built a framework where it was, so I can get some laths on there and do it properly. I'll give you a quick look. A bit difficult to get you a decent shot up there because the sun's shining right through that window at the minute. So I've got all that done. I've made and fitted beads. You can see there on the corner, some little dowel beads I've had to whittle. And I've got all the laths on there as well as the framework. Got all this scratched on this week. And on the laths, etc. up there, I've got that scratched on too. Now, I can't start running that cornice until this stuff's been on for at least a week. It really needs to dry out, because if I don't let it, there's a good chance it's all going to start cracking. So, right, well, I hope you've enjoyed that. A little insight into the world of lime plastering. There is going to be more to come next week. Tomorrow, basically, I'm just buggering about putting a bit of a scratch coat on here and there, which I've already shown you. So, yeah, next week we might start running the cornice. I'm going to have to order some more lath as well for above the window. So I can't get on with that. So as usual, if you've enjoyed it, big thumbs up. Very important. Get them thumbs up. Also, if you've enjoyed it and you've learned something and you fancy watching more of the videos, please feel free to subscribe. Right, we'll see you all next week for another episode of Buggering About with Old Buildings.